This is another episode of Talks with Tyler ISD, a podcast about the passionate people who have a heart for students. This podcast is brought to you by Texas Bank and Trust. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Talks with Tyler ISD. I'm your host, Jennifer Hines, and joining us today is the new elementary school principal for Orr Elementary School, Nathan Harbour. Nathan, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate having you here.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me. I know there's, a ton of wonderful people that you guys could have on here, and so I'm just kind of honored to be here and chatting with you.
Absolutely. Well, we've kind of gotten through the first few weeks of school now. Things are well underway. Let's talk a little bit about you first, though. 10 years in education. Yes. Tell us about your journey and your desire to go into this field.
Well, the desire started back in college. I was planning to be an engineer, all of the things. I think my physics teacher in high school said, "Oh, you'd be a great engineer." So that was the plan. Got to school, was fortunate enough to play basketball in college. And we had mandatory study hall hours and everything in the library. And my coach is like, "Hey, Nathan, we're not worried about your grades or anything like that."
You're like, "But I am."
Yeah. And so they're like, "How do you want to like tutor teammates?" And you'd get paid to do that. And I was a college kid who
You're like, yes, I would.
So started tutoring my teammates and other athletes on the track team, basketball team, just wherever. And really realized that there was a need, especially for some of my teammates. I didn't realize that remedial classes in college were a thing.
Right.
And just asking teammates, like, what's 7 times 6, and then pulling out a calculator. And I'm like,
you got to know your math facts.
Exactly. We want to get to the, where math fluency is just where kids can do it on the fly, and because otherwise they're stuck.
Yes. And so you saw them getting to that collegiate level and being stuck by things that they didn't learn. So that kind of led you to say, "Hey, yes. I need to go this direction." Yeah. So that is a big shift from engineering to teaching.
It was. My dad wasn't too happy about it at first. I think he told me I was making a very, for lack of a better word, poor decision.
Yes. And you can now go back to him and be like, "Look at me, Dad, now I'm a principal."
Well, it's funny because he is actually probably my biggest supporter now.
I love to hear that.
Because he understands the impact that we get to have every day with our students. So just through that journey, I started out, I thought I wanted to do high school right from the start. Went through the student teaching phase here at UT Tyler. And Miss Donna Wise handed me a sheet of paper and it said 5th grade.
Okay, elementary.
And I go, "Oh, wait a minute. This is not what I want. This is not."
You're like, "I want high school."
Yes. And so she's like, "Nathan, go for a week, 2 weeks. And if you still feel that way, then we'll talk about changing." And I went the first day. One of the little kids wraps their arm around your leg, and you're like, "Oh, okay, this is cool.
Awesome. They're gonna hug me and love me."
And being a guy in elementary, you're like a rock star.
Yeah.
And so, because a lot of times kids at that point haven't had a male teacher for the most part,
right?
And so you're just like the coolest person ever. So through that process, enjoyed it. Was fortunate enough to get hired on at the school I did my student teaching at, which was in Chapel Hill. And from there, knew that I wanted to kind of start branching out and seeking other opportunities. And Mr. Lane took a chance on me at Moore Middle School, teaching 7th grade math and Algebra 1. And from there, the next year, Kay Beller went back into retirement. And he asked me to slide into, I think the title was Facilitator of Student Transition and Engagement. And I was like, what does that
what is that
exactly
mean?
But it was a great first step. I think taking that step allowed me the following year to go with Mr. Lane to, at that time it was John Tyler, and then over that summer the name changed to Tyler High School, and was there for 4 years, and now.
So you got to be under Mr. Lane's leadership at not only the middle school level, but also the high school level.
100%. And learned so much from Mr. Lane. Some things we still to this day are going to see differently on, but just the amount of time and everything that he poured into me, and just the conversations that we got to have well into 6 or 7 o'clock at night, sometimes just those mentoring conversations
absolutely
paid huge dividends for me.
Well, and helped you kind of develop your leadership style and all of that. I know that you've gotten your bachelor's and then went on to get your master's.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your leadership style and philosophy, because you do have all of those mentors, but you still have to find your own.
For sure.
And what that makeup looks like.
100%. So I've, through life just experiences, I've had a ton of people, Mr. Lane probably being one of the most influential as far as an education setting, but my high school basketball coach was obviously influential as well, sent me on the path, was able to teach me some things to get me to the next level for sports in college. At the time, I absolutely hated having 4 different college coaches. So every single year of my career in college, I had a new head coach.
Wow.
So it was learning a new style, a new system, just a new personality.
Right. So it really exposed you to a lot of different leadership styles. You got to see how everybody did things and kind of glean all those nuggets and put them together.
So I learned a lot of what I did want to be like and some things that I knew
didn't
I
want
didn't
to be
want
like.
to be
and
like.
Sometimes it's important to learn just as much what you don't want to be like as what you do want to be like.
100%. I knew I never wanted to be a screamer.
Right.
After one of my coaches, have a great relationship with him now, but he had like the Britney Spears headset mic.
Oh my goodness.
Like 5 or 6 in the morning and he's just on that thing trying to motivate us, encourage us.
Yeah.
But I knew that wasn't going to be my style.
That's not going to be me.
So I had the opportunity last year to be part of the Into Learning process. I think Dr. Gropel has kind of selected some people to be a part of that, and I was selected last year to be in the East Texas cohort. And through that process, we were able to really kind of define what we believed as leaders and things like that. And through that process, we kind of had to take a huge list and essentially get it down to 3 or 4 things that we really felt was important to us.
Tell us a little bit about that program for those that don't know what that is.
So essentially, it's a process a cohort that meets. I think we met 6 or 7 times throughout the year. We had a principal panel, so principals would come in, talk to us. Bobby Markle was one of them. And through that, it's really not so much giving you things to like go home and do, but it is really a time that you get to reflect on yourself and find out what you believe about yourself, education, what you hope to accomplish throughout your career.
And you're with other educators from all over the state, right? Or is it just the area?
It was, since we were the East Texas cohort, I think they have a bunch of other ones. Like I think there's 2 in Houston, 1 in Wichita Falls, there's 1 in Dallas.
Okay.
And so we were the East Texas. I think we had people from Carthage, White House.
So at least in the area, so you're getting to learn other people as well in different districts, how they do things, their leadership styles. That's wonderful to have that exposure.
Yeah, and it's like the iron sharpens iron sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so we got to have great conversations and really in a safe place where there wasn't, like an immediate supervisor or something there. You got to really hash out and talk through challenges that maybe you were currently facing in your current position with other educators that might not have the same perspective as you. And so it was a good opportunity to have those conversations and really figure out what you believed.
And so that helps you really to shape your leadership style.
100%. I met with all of our teachers this summer at Orr Elementary before, because they're like, "Who's this guy?
Who's the new guy walking in?"
And so we tried with every single person, whether it was a para, the nurse, a teacher, had one-on-one meetings trying to just really give them a chance to get to know me, what I believe, and I also wanted to get to know them. And so we focused a lot on them, and at the end I would kind of talk through what my 3 big leadership things were. For me, my faith is one of those things. I told everybody I'm not going to get up in front of you and give you a Bible sermon or anything like that, but I would hope that through my actions that you would know what I believe. Not that I have to stand up and say I'm this or I'm that, but you really know what I believe through my actions.
Yeah.
The second thing is family is so important to me. I don't want to say I had a dysfunctional family growing up, but my mom was 46 when she had me.
Okay, so a bit of an age gap for you, different than most, common, I guess.
For sure. My brother is 26 years older than me.
Wow.
He has 2 kids that are older than me. So through that family dynamic, we had obviously different fathers and stuff like that, but my mom was kind of our link together.
Yeah.
And so when I started, my wife has a wonderful family, and so I love seeing how cohesive they are, and want to build that with my personal family, but also as well with my school family.
Right.
Because
you spend a lot of time with them, so it really does become your school family.
It really does.
Your Orr family.
And so through that family, team, whatever you want to call it, a group of people with a common goal, all pushing for the same thing, that's super valuable to me. I've been a part of a team in every aspect of my life. In high school, I was fortunate enough to be one of what you would call the star players or whatever.
Yeah.
But then when you go to college, all of a sudden everybody
was the star player, so where do you fit in then?
Exactly. Yeah. And so from there, just kind of figuring out, telling people like, hey, we just got to figure out where you fit on the team, and once we get you in the right spot and utilize all of your skills and talents, that's when the whole team, the whole family really flourishes.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to find the right seat on the bus, so to speak.
For sure. And the last one that I talked with all of the staff about was character. I think character is one of those things that it takes forever to build and to demonstrate to people, but it takes an instant
for it to go away.
So Mr. Lane always told me M&Ms are the things that get you in trouble in education, money, and morals. And so we try our absolute best to have a high standard, because sometimes that might be the only place kids see some of the standards that we hope to see in our community members.
Yeah.
And so being that I want to say I'm
role
perfect,
model,
but
yes. But all of y'all, the entire staff, everyone from top to bottom, left to right, everyone having that and sharing that character and high standard. Well, speaking of high standards, your school is undergoing a redesign.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. You're going in the direction of a college prep situation.
So my first initial thought was, what in the world? How are we going to have kids ready for college at the end of 5th grade? It was like this big conundrum in my head. And so through talking with some coaches that we have that are walking us through the process, I just asked that question. I was like, hey, what is this college prep thing really about? And through that process, they were able to kind of articulate to me, really, it's just making sure your kids are ready for the next thing.
Right.
So as they leave kindergarten, they know everything that they're supposed to know at the kindergarten level, so that when they get to 1st grade,
they're ready.
They're ready
to succeed.
And so through our, we have here in Tyler ISD, one of our initiatives is the On 3x3, and it's just so impactful for students to be on grade level by 3rd grade, because there's been tons of research and studies done, and Tyler ISD has actually done their own internal one to find the exact same thing, that if students aren't reading on grade level by 3rd grade, that there is a high chance that they never will read on grade level. And that's a truly scary statistic that we're trying to combat with the college prep model.
And you've got a plan, you've got things in place. Being on the 3rd grade reading level by 3rd grade, very important. That early literacy, early numeracy as well, very important. And I know with college prep too, just planting the seed of, you have what it takes to go to college. You work hard, you do these things, and it's, Leader in Me, I know it's district-wide, begin with the end in mind.
100%.
Definitely a part of that college prep part. Now, looking at your first 100 days, what are some of the things that you hope to accomplish? What are some things that you've implemented, or what are you doing? Share with us about that.
Well, it's really not trying to just change so much. It's really taking the things that were already started to be put in place. With Miss Smith, I was fortunate enough to work with her for a few years at Tyler High School. And so we have a lot of the same educational philosophies as what we know is good instruction in the classroom. So not really coming in and trying to just change everything, but focusing on the things that Orr Elementary was already doing well and then expanding on those things. One of the things is students kind of lead our morning announcements, and they have, at the end of the announcements, they say, like, let me hear you roar. And roar stands for reach for the stars, operate with pride, agree to be positive, and respect myself, others, and the school. And so
do they roar? That's what I want to know. So everybody in the school roars. I love it.
So there's like a 3 to 5 second delay after because we do them live, very much similar to what we're doing now. And you'll say it and you'll go through it, and then at the end you say, "Let me hear you roar." And then about 3 to 5 seconds later, the whole hallways are filled with little elementary school kids roaring. And it's just fun. It's an awesome thing. And I was told it by our counselor, Miss Borden. She's like, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so the first time I heard it, I was like, oh, like it almost gives you chills.
Yeah, you're like, oh my gosh, I get it.
Yes. So through that, just making sure the staff know that I'm not there to, kind of going back to leadership style. Like, my goal is not to get you in trouble or anything like that.
Your goal is to grow them.
Yes,
to enhance their abilities.
And so we've had a few staff meetings and stuff like that, and I've told them, like, guys, I told y'all I was going to be in your classrooms, and they're like, yeah Mr. Harbour, you've been in there like 17 times, and it's we're how many ever days into school now, and it's just that them feeling supported. The first few times, you come in,
they're a little like, oh,
yes,
the big boss is here.
And like the students, they see you walking in and they start waving and everything like elementary school kids. So getting the students and the teachers just comfortable, really in the first 100 days, seeing you in the classroom. Because if you're not used to seeing somebody, it feels like you're being interrogated, right?
Right. Like, so you make it the norm instead of the exception.
100%. Like, even though we're sitting here doing what we're supposed to be doing, if Dr. Crawford walked in right now, it would change the feel, right? Yeah. Not that we're doing anything wrong, just because of the positional authority sometimes.
Right, yeah, that can happen. So this really kind of breaks down that barrier between you and your staff, and
for sure.
And again, helps you, because the longer you get with a person, the more you get to see their style, help them create that relationship, and then they feel more comfortable, and then they feel supported, or that they can come forward and say, hey, I'd really like to try this, or I'd really like to try that sort of thing.
100%.
Let's talk about some of the highlights that you would like to celebrate for this year. I know you've had some teachers doing really, really well with TIA that allows them to make more money in the classroom.
Yeah, so one of the things that as we started talking about me potentially taking over Orr Elementary back in May, early June, is like everybody kept telling me, oh, you have all of these awesome teachers. You have all of these awesome teachers. And I was like, okay, like, that's great. Like, I just get to kind of go in.
Yeah.
And then at the beginning of school, we had the announcement for the TIA allotment, which is the teacher incentive allotment, where essentially there's 3 different levels where teachers get to earn more money based off of some different metrics like student growth in their classroom. So the more kids you grow, the more money you get, essentially.
Yeah.
And then as well as teacher observations and things like that. But it's amazing because we have 14 out of the 40 teachers on our campus that have received that distinction, and some of them weren't eligible just because of what they teach or don't teach, or them being new to campus.
Right.
And so 14 out of the 40 that we have that were potentially could get it. That's a really high number.
That's a really high number for one campus. That's amazing.
Yeah, so super excited to just build off of that momentum. Our data last year for our K which is kindergarten 1 classes, were just phenomenal. Those teachers did a great job, and almost all of the returning ones in those grades were part of the 14. And we've had a few different planning meetings with grade levels, and the teachers at the next grade level are like, oh my gosh, y'all did so well with these kids. They've come in knowing, their letters, knowing how to read.
They're ready.
And they're ready for that next thing. So we're just really trying to keep that momentum going so that when the TEA accountability, whenever it gets released, if it ever gets released, will demonstrate all of the wonderful things that are going on and just kind of using that to propel us forward.
That's wonderful. Well, let's talk a little bit about the parents, because it is a partnership, of 100%. Course, home and school. I know you're wanting to obviously welcome them onto your campus and involved in the PTA.
For sure. So I think Ms. Smith had recently got the PTA started back up. I think there was an issue with having it on campus that has since been resolved. And so we are wanting to get parents involved in our lunches, in after school events, anything.
However they can support, yes.
However, wherever. I know that having dads on campus is a big thing for
absolutely
as role models. We spoke a little bit earlier about just the importance that having those role models in your life are. And so having them in the campus and essentially getting to see what the day-to-day actually looks like. Because I think sometimes parents have a perception of what they think school is.
And then they get in there and they're like, oh, this is what y'all are doing. Wow, I had no idea.
Yes, and so when you start breaking down those barriers, it starts to change people's perceptions. I know that's being at the high school, that was one of the things that we were really working at trying to do is change the perception of what some people believe about the school.
Right.
And so that's one of the biggest things that the only way we can change people's beliefs is if we show them.
Yeah. And invite them in. See it for yourself. Yeah.
And so we're looking to get as many people involved in our PTA as we can because we know that that's really what helps drive students. And when students see their parents making an importance of school, then they start to take some ownership of it.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. Well, what else would you like for those that are listening to this podcast to know about you or the great things that are going on at Orr?
For me, it's just that we have all of our educators are committed to making sure the students are on grade level. One of the things that we did at the beginning of school was really replace kind of the faces of the community kids with a kid that we valued. And so for me, it was my daughter who's 15 months, just adorable. But we essentially made these little poker chips and put their faces on it instead of the kid who's coming into your classroom. Because when you can make something personal, you do things just a little bit differently when it becomes personal. And so through that process, just when you start talking about, oh, this kid isn't on grade level.
Yeah, we got to focus on that person.
But it changes completely when you start saying, what if that was your kid?
Right.
Not reading on grade level. What would you do in your classroom to get your kid reading on grade level?
Yeah.
And so when teachers start making it personal, then that's where you see a lot of barriers broken down and relationships built with students. And so through that, we just want to ensure that we know through that process, through reading fluency and math fluency, that students are going to be ready for that college experience at the end of the Tyler ISD pipeline.
Yeah.
And one of our things is here in Tyler ISD is successful student outcomes. And the reason that is our saying is because we want students to go and be successful here in our Tyler community. Mr. Lane tells a story about him having a health issue and getting picked up in an ambulance, and it was 2 kids from Tyler ISD that went to John Tyler back, and he was actually their principal at Moore Middle School.
So it was kids he had been over and helped bring up, and then they were now helping take care of him. So it does. You are growing the next generation of those who are going to be in our workforce and taking care of us as we grow older.
Sure.
So that definitely puts it into perspective.
And there's going to be kids who graduate this year that in 5 years could be teaching my daughter.
Right.
Or, being a lawyer in the Tyler community. And we just want to make sure that people know that our commitment at Orr Elementary is to growing people that can be productive citizens so that ultimately they can be successful once they leave Tyler ISD.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Nathan Harbour, new elementary principal at Orr Elementary School. Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
And thank you for joining us for this latest episode of Talks with Tyler ISD. If you would like to know about more things, all Tyler ISD, you can download our app or subscribe to our district newsletter. You can do that by going to get.tylerisd.news. We would like to thank our sponsor, Texas Bank and Trust. Subscribe to Talks with Tyler ISD on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Please share this episode with your friends and family.